Hey, what's going on, everybody? Oops. Camera is a little messed up here. Bear with me just a second. Ooh, I accidentally kicked my camera when I started. Let me move that just a tiny bit. There we go. I think we're good. Alright. Are we good? I think we're going. Just make sure all this is good. Alright, I think we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Anyone watching the stream? Thanks for tuning in. I know it's kind of late. It is almost midnight on a Saturday night. So if you are here, thanks for chilling. We're just going to do a little bit of building for Didact and have a little bit of fun. Alright. Give me just a minute here. And I will share some code and we'll get to building. Let's see here. Just gonna make one quick message and we'll be good to go. I have this subreddit for Didact where I go and I make posts talking about me building Didact, like working on it or building it or like announcing like live streams or something. But I don't have like a scheduler that like lets me schedule a post on there. It's really annoying. Hey, what up? My boy, a Seafaring Llama, is in here. What up, dude? Is the chat on screen? It is not on screen, but I appreciate you mentioning that to me. I just saw your message. Oh, hey, Jeffrey, tell Sydney I said thank you. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Jeffrey, tell Sydney she's the bomb, and I definitely appreciate it. Y'all are the bomb. Y'all the best. Love you too, dude. Y'all the best. It is, she just freaked out. That's funny. Yeah, let me tell you, it is a kind of a hassle to get all this stuff together. Oh my gosh. Streaming requires a lot. It's kind of crazy. You have to like make sure that you don't overwhelm audio levels. Then today I figured out how to get my camera's manual focus working. So now my face doesn't look all weird when I try to do a focus, which is nice. And yeah, and then I also had all these like weird dots on my face when I was trying to mess with the focus. and I realized it was because of a dumb setting I had turned on the camera. The camera I have has like a cajillion settings on it. I don't know what any of them mean. So it's been a learning experience. I will definitely say that. But thank y'all. Thank y'all for joining. I appreciate that. I hope y'all are ready to look at some super cool, super boring C# code. No, I'm kidding. It's not boring. Not to me anyway. This is good stuff. We're doing good stuff on this channel. We're building a C# app of C# apps here, and it's going to be good. I am very, very excited. It's going to be good. Jeffrey, you the bomb, dude. Appreciate the support. Love you, man. You're the best. You the best. I've had a few people. I've had a few people go back and watch the first one. I need to respond to some people, actually. Some awesome early adopters and stuff that I've been talking to. I just haven't had a chance to quite do that yet, but appreciate the support. Thank you. Finally, also shout out to my wife. That amazing. The sign says Humble Hustle. It's just a little hard to see right now. And the Halo book. And the light's kind of a bit too bright, but that's an energy sword behind me that is next to the Halo book. It is so cool. Haley found that for me on like TikTok or something and got it for me, and it's legitimately one of the coolest things I've ever gotten in my life. So shout out to Haley. You the bomb. You know how to decorate an office like nobody's business. You the bomb. Y'all the best. You the best, Jeffrey. You the best, Sydney. You the best, Haley. Y'all the best. Appreciate that. And Haley said she wants to decorate this wall now behind me, which I think is gonna look really good. We gotta like put some stuff up on the wall. I don't know if I like need another table maybe or something. We'll figure it out. It's gonna be good. But yeah, I've got all my cool Halo stuff behind me because I mean I'm working on a C# app called Didact, literally named after my favorite Halo character. So it's only appropriate that I have a giant Halo book and an energy sword and a needler behind me. Because I mean, if I'm a Halo fanatic, I might as well own it, you know? Might as well own it. Alright. I guess I should actually do some actual coding now, shouldn't I? Oh boy. Alright, let's do it. Let's get into this. Also, y'all let me know if the music is too loud. I turned the music up just a little bit more than the last time because it was just a tiny bit too low, but I'm not 100% sure if it's too loud. Haley is saying it's not too loud. So hopefully we'll be good. But I may go back and watch this, and we'll just figure it out. It'll be good. We'll be good. We'll be good. I thought maybe some lo-fi music like this in the background just to kind of relax and listen to would make the stream a little bit more fun. Okay, where are we at now? And yes, Jeffrey, you bring up a good point. I should probably go to Stream Widgets or Streamlabs.com. Stream Elements, that's what it's called. And they have little widgets where you can put like the chat on the screen. Right now, I do not have the chat showing up on the screen, and I need to fix that because that would be really fun to see that. Because yeah, I just now thought about that, and that I feel like that's kind of weird for the viewers not to be able to see that. So I'll fix that. I'm gonna make a note actually. I need to get a chat widget. Get chat widget from streamelements.com. Maybe I'll do a donation widget or something at some point, but haven't really prioritized that one for the moment. All right. Well, how about we do some coding now? My best friend Jeffrey and Jordan and I, we are. I think we're gonna play some Halo shortly. So I did say I'm a Halo fanatic. To any of the viewers watching, I am a fanatic of Halo. So, oh, also learned this from last time. I'm gonna turn my resolution up so y'all can see a little bit easier. How about that? All right. Yeah, so what are we working on? So, tonight I wanted to do a little bit of work on Didact console again. I kind of talked about this some last time. Didact console is going to be the app where customers log into to manage their billing and their API keys, and just have like some nice admin utilities. This is not something that the free users are really going to care that much about, and I kind of just want to get it done and get it out of the way so I can go back to working on the actual apps that I actually need to finish, because most of the time that I need to spend right now is going to be in I've got a bunch of modules to finish in Didact Engine, and that's going to be where like a lot of my live streaming is going to be in the next couple weeks. I have some really, really important modules in Didact Engine that I have to finish, like some super complex C# code. I need to finish that up, and then I've also got to work on the user interface because a lot of Didact UI is still not built yet. I have some rough drafts and some like work in progress user interfaces I've been working on, but I need to actually finish the thing and get the first version out. So I've got a lot to do. The console is going to be great for customers. Free users will probably not give a rip about it, but it's just one of those, not annoying or dumb things I'll say, but it's just one of those things I got to get finished so we can get to the good stuff, so I can get to the engine, so I can get to the background jobs, so we can get to the good stuff that everybody wants to see. So just gonna knock this thing out, hopefully be done with it quickly, and and then, like I said, we'll get to the good stuff. So what I'm in the process of doing tonight, for those of you who may be interested, for any fellow C# people watching, I have to add an authentication system to Didact console. And remember what we talked about last time. Didact console has both a backend API and a user interface. You can see that in my VS Code screen that I'm sharing. I've kind of set up like a little mono repo for it. So I have a UI, and then I've got a console API. Both of these I have to use to deliver like the whole Didact console app. So what I'm working on now is essentially I have to add an authentication system to this. So I was doing some searching, and I made a little video about this earlier today, actually, on my my personal like YouTube account, where I talked about some tips if you use an external authentication system, how you should do multi-tenancy. You should make a dev and a staging and a prod tenant to make testing easier for yourself. And I actually made a little fun YouTube video about that earlier that I published. I'll share it in the chat in just a second. But I decided to go with Microsoft Entra External ID. So for those of you who are not familiar, Azure has an authentication system that's built in whenever you make an Azure subscription. That's called Microsoft Active Directory. They renamed it to Entra because they have to rename everything all the time. And now it's called Entra ID. But if you're building an application, like say you're a C# developer and you're building a SaaS app, and you want to add a login system to your C# app, so you can actually sign up for Entra External ID. So there's two different Entras. There's the built-in Entra that you get when you make an Azure subscription, and then there's Entra External ID. Entra External ID is basically a third-party auth system, and you can make, they call them tenants. So you can make an external ID tenant. And that tenant is basically like a giant database where all of your users go into. The nice thing about Entra External ID is, one, if you host everything in Azure like I already do, it's super convenient because you can just spin that up as a new service and keep all your billing and your hosting in one place. That's essentially what I do. So it's good for me for convenience because I host everything in Azure already. Another nice thing about Entra External ID is they have a lot of nice features baked in for an authentication system. So if you want social logins, like say you want GitHub, you want like Facebook or Google or like some other OIDBC login plugin, Entra ID has that built in, which is kind of nice. So that's like out of the box, they just have that baked into the platform. The other big thing, and I talked about this in the YouTube video that I shared earlier, is SSO. So if you are working on an application like I am with Didact, where you can see B2B users or like B2B type settings being used for your application, there's a good chance that some business somewhere is going to ask you to fulfill SSO requirements. And SSO stands for single sign-on, for those who may not be familiar. SSO is basically like a complicated headache of like an authentication system for businesses specifically. Like an everyday consumer would never ask for this, but someone who's running an enterprise probably would. And so one nice thing about Entra External ID is they have all that baked into, which is great. And then they have a few other things, like they've got protections for, I think, timing attacks. I'm pretty sure they can help you set up alerts for like IP restrictions. And if any of your users require multi-factor authentication, like by sending an MFA code via text message, or if you want to do like an authentication app, like say the Microsoft Authenticator app, or like maybe like the Google Authenticator app, Entra can do all that, essentially. So in a nutshell, that's basically why I'm choosing Entra. There's a lot of nice pre-built stuff that's baked in that makes my life easier. And I thought about using ASP.NET Core Identity because that's like a pre-built library that you can add to your app, and you basically get like all of these authentication tables added to your database. I chose not to do that this time only because I don't really want all those tables in my database per se, and I'm not like super interested in dealing with SSO and C# and like wiring that up in my host app. I think I'd kind of rather just delegate that, honestly, to a third-party system. And, you know, basically I'm just choosing the good old-fashioned JSON Web Token approach. So you would log in, if you're a user for Didact Console, like let's say you become a paid customer, you would log in, you would be redirected to like a Microsoft hosted login page that I have, and then you would get like an access token, a refresh token, and an ID token, and I would just kind of wire all that up in my database. That's pretty much it. So yeah, just trying to do things conveniently because I don't really want to work on this that much. I actually want to work on the actual Didact apps that I actually want to do. I just need to get this out of the way so I can get back to the good stuff. So probably a little bit more to hear than you asked for, but that's just kind of some of my motivation behind why I'm doing this. That being said, I did do a few things to help speed up the process. I went ahead earlier today or yesterday, I can't remember which. I went ahead and I created some Azure Key Vault instances, which is really good. Because Azure Key Vault, let me switch back to my main Azure tenant here. I'll actually show you a little bit of my Azure tenant for Didact because I don't have any like sensitive credentials or anything in there right now. My key vaults are all empty, so I can kind of show you guys on screen what it looks like a little bit. You might be kind of interested to see this. So this is kind of cool. Maybe you'll find this interesting. So this is my Azure tenant for Didact, because even though Didact is a self-hosted application, I have a Azure tenant where I host, and actually, sorry, I just realized you're probably having a little bit of a hard time reading some of that still. Maybe I need to zoom in. No, it's hard to zoom in just right when you're on stream because you can't quite tell how easy people can read everything. I think that's a bit too much. We'll do 110%. Let's try that. Let me make a note of that real quick. Let's do 110% web browser zoom. Okay. Yeah, so this is kind of cool. This is like a little bit of a peek for you into the Azure tenant that I have for Didact. I had to get an Azure tenant because I've got like a Microsoft 365 subscription, and then I host like the licensing server that's going to be built into Didact console, and then I've got like the landing page and the landing API and a few other things that I needed to host somewhere. So it made sense to just go ahead and create an Azure tenant a while back. So I've got one already. But yeah, as you can see, this is what I was talking about in my YouTube video earlier. I made a key vault kind of the way that I did for my intra tenants. So I've got a dev and a staging and a prod key vault, and that corresponds to my dev, staging, and my production intra external ID tenants. Just to keep everything nice and separated and easily testable and separated by environment, it just makes everything so much easier. I know how much life sucks when you don't do this. I'm speaking from experience. I'm not interested in making that same mistake again. So the idea is going to be that I'll load database connection strings, API keys, and any other like credentials that I need for each environment of Didact console. So I'll have a dev for local, I have staging for testing, and then I'll have production for the live users. And basically I have a key vault that corresponds to each one of those, which is kind of cool. So if I am understanding my key vault architecture correctly here, what I should have to do, I believe, is wire up some secret credentials for each of the intra ID external tenants that I have, and basically wire those up and then throw them in here. And depending on the environment that gets used, that will automatically shift to the correct environment, Azure Key Vault, that'll have all the DB connection strings and everything that I need, which is great. And I have to set up also Azure app registrations for each external tenant. So for dev, staging, and prod, I've got to have 2 Azure app registration tenants per, 2 Azure app registrations per tenant. So I have to have an app registration for the single page app, which is Didact Console UI. That is basically the Nuxt app right here in Visual Studio. And then I also need an Azure app registration for the web API or the backend, which is the REST API built in C#. And I need an app registration for that too. So we've got a bit of configuration to get set up. Some of this I won't be able to show on screen because some of it is like secret credentials that I can't show, but I can at least show you how I can like wire up some of this in C# because I think it's still kind of interesting. And it's still stuff that you might appreciate seeing. A lot of this, by the way, like basically all of this, I had to teach myself over the last 3 years. Azure is absolutely horrible for solopreneurs. I threw myself into the deep end. It was utterly terrifying. Now that I've been in there for a couple of years, I'm a professional in Azure. I mean, I may not do crazy stuff as other people do, but like I've literally been running the business out of Azure for 3 years. And now I'm wiring up a second one, and I host stuff in Azure all the time. So I've learned the ins and outs of this over time, which is good. Also, I'm gonna up the zoom on Visual Studio. That way you can read my text just a little bit easier. I think that'll be good. Okay, so now what we need to do is, because I've got my 3 intra ID external tenants, I need to wire this up in app settings. So, by the way, these are delicious. This is a Swedish fish flavored Ghost energy drink. These things are utterly amazing. Oh my gosh, they're so good. All right, my friends. Let's get this junk going. So, how do we want to do this? So first off, I'm going to have credentials that get stored in a key vault. So first thing I need to do is have dynamic references to the appropriate key vault so I know which one I'm dealing with here. Probably, what should we call this in app settings then? Let's just call it key vault URL. I think that'll work. Azure key vault URL. That is going to be a string. And for the moment, we're going to leave that empty because here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a few more app settings files. We're going to do, can I do right click, add? I cannot. Okay. Let's see here. Is there one for a settings file? Of course there's not. Whatever. There's probably some Visual Studio, what do you call it? Like, there's probably some Visual Studio shortcut I'm not thinking of right now. That's okay. Let's do app settings dot staging dot JSON. And let's do one more. Let's do app settings dot production dot JSON. Now we are going to take that key and we're going to copy and paste it into the other app settings files. Only thing is, do I want to name that something else, or do I usually go with that name? Well, let me just see here real quick. Sorry, everybody. No, okay, that's right, yeah. Azure Key Vault URL is what I named it last time. Okay, alright, cool. We're good, we good. Cool. So, we need to copy and paste this into our other app settings.json files. All right, so why don't we just copy and paste that into each one of these here. Production and development. Okay, so let's copy and paste each respective key vault URL. Let's start with, let's order these the way that makes sense. We'll do development first. And I believe we just copy and paste the key vault URL straight in. So that'll be for development. And this one will be for staging. And this one will be for production. Make sure I got these right here. Development, dev, staging, stage, production, prod. Awesome. That is fantastic. So the nice thing is, this is a non-sensitive security. I shouldn't even call it like security. This is not like a sensitive what should I call it? Like a security credential. This is just a URL to a key vault that I have. I mean, I guess I don't want anyone to DOS the URL, but also Azure probably deals with that with their own IP whitelisting software and blah blah blah. But yeah, basically, the reason that I'm doing this, so you notice I've got one for dev, I've got one for staging, and I've got one for production. The reason I did this is because each key vault URL, like I said earlier, contains all of the security credentials and connection strings and everything you need, like per environment. So if you have a dev environment and a staging environment and a production environment, each key vault URL has everything that you need per environment, which is super nice. So by respectfully like wiring these up for each setting, each app settings file that you've got, it allows seamless transition from one environment to the next environment, which is super nice. Also, what's up, Boot Duke? Look at this cool guy doing some sick work. You're the best, brother. Thank you, my man. I'm trying to do some sick work. I meant to get on much earlier doing this sick work, but thank you, my man. Thank you. Oh, and you just subscribed to the channel. Thanks, dude. Boot Duke, shout out, my man. Appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Thanks for checking out the stream, man. Everybody, if you are a big fan of achievement hunting and you enjoy watching people play video games and do achievement hunting, then check out Boot Duke in the chat here. He has an amazing YouTube channel. 10 out of 10 recommend you go watch his content. He's popping off like crazy right now. Good stuff, man. Appreciate the support. All right. So, my friends, we have got our app settings set up, and we've got our key vault URLs in each file. So now what we need to do is bring that into program.cs and actually bring the key vault URL in. And I did this in another project, so I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm doing a little bit of cheating here, and I'm copying and pasting from another project that I worked on. So bear with me. I'm cheating a little bit, but that's okay. Look, when you do things one time, okay, and you already figure it out, you might as well just save yourself a little bit of work next time. No point reinventing the wheel over and over again, right? All right, let's see what we got here. Perfecto. That's what we're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. So I am going to copy and paste this from a different project that I had. So let's go down and let's do this above the add memory cache statement. So check that out. This is kind of cool. So I'm essentially reaching into the app settings.json file. And then you remember that Azure Key Vault URL, right? That's the JSON field that we just wired up a second ago. So Azure Key Vault URL, let's make sure the casing is still the same on that. Perfect. So that essentially reaches into our iConfiguration object and grabs that value from app settings. And then if it's missing, I throw an exception at startup, which is good. Except we are missing an important NuGet package. I believe I need to add Azure Identity and Azure extensions.asp.NET Core.configuration.secrets. I think those are the NuGet packages that I need. So let's add them. Let's copy and paste this bad boy in here. Go to browse, put in our secrets. And we're going for the top one, 98.1 million downloads. Yep, I think that's the one we need. Okay. Yep, think we're good. Is that all we needed, or do we need one more? We might need, okay, yes. I think we need the Azure identity. Bingo. So I was correct. We needed one more NuGet package. Good deal. All right, perfect. And now our red squigglies are gone. So we had to add 2 NuGet packages. We had to add azure.extensions.asp.NET Core.configurations.secrets, and then we had to add azure.identity. Those 2 NuGet packages allow us to reference key vaults, which is great. So added NuGet packages to bring in Azure key vaults. Cool. All right, good deal. So we got that in there. And now remember, this line right here in program.cs brings in the key vault URL from the app settings.json file. So this changes automatically with each environment. And then all the key vaults will have all the secrets and the connection strings that we need, which is great. This is nice and slick and clean, and it works great. The only thing is, why don't we change the launch settings file and properties? Let's add some other profiles. Let's copy the HTTPS profile, and let's just add a few more here. In fact, we'll do 3. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to give them better names. So let's call this first one I guess we can just name them right after the environment, right? Let's just call it development. And you'll notice the ASP.NET Core environment variable says development. Let's just call this one staging. And we will name this one staging. And then let's call this one production. And we'll name this one production. Okay, nice. So now we've got 3 new launch settings files, and there's no like security things in here or whatever. This is just pre-generated junk from Visual Studio. So development, staging, production. Awesome. And we can actually switch that. So now you can notice, I forget what this menu is called, but if I open up this menu up here at the top, now we have a development, a staging, and production, which is exactly what we want, which is fantastic. So that is great. Maybe we'll rename them to something else later on, but I think that's more than sufficient right now. And I like nice, small, atomic, unit, bite-sized commits to keep everything nice and easy and trackable. So added staging and production profiles to launch settings.json. Just makes it a little easier to test between different environments, which is super convenient. All right, awesome. And then let's okay, let's think for a minute here. Let's go ahead and we'll commit the app settings files too, because none of this stuff is sensitive security credentials. Let's do that. We're gonna take out program.cs. Program.cs has I think the namespace added, and then and then the Azure Key Vault addition there. So that's using the default credential, which is what I want. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll do that. Added Azure Key Vault key to app settings.json, and added them to app settings.json files and program.cs. Awesome. Cool. All right. So, I think probably the next thing that I would want is to have an app settings class I can bind the app settings to. So I think the next thing I want to do is go ahead and make an app settings class. And we can basically configure the iConfiguration object onto app settings, which is super convenient. So let's do that. Let's make an app settings class. And I'm trying to think where we want to put this. I mean, I could probably just make a folder called let's just make a folder called services. We'll just keep it easy. And let's add a class called app settings.cs. And yeah, then we'll start adding some configuration values in here. So we've got a public required string Azure Key Vault URL. Get set, that has to not be null. Well, no, wait a minute, that says required. Why is that giving me a hard time? Oh, yeah, right. How do I need to disable that. What the heck is it called? You have to add this in your CSproj file. Oh my gracious. There we go. I was like, where? There's probably a better way to do this than just straight up throwing this in the CSproj file, but you know, whatever. We're just gonna go with it for the moment. Let's put a note warn on CS 51591. We'll throw that in CSproj and rebuild. Are we still getting warnings? I don't think so. Added whatever to .csproj. There might be a better best practice for that, but I kind of just want to get that thing to shut up for a moment. So we've got public required string Azure Key Vault URL that matches the exact name from app settings.json, which is fantastic. But now what we need to do is we need to bring this thing, oops, oh, don't do this. Now what we got to do is bring it into program.cs and bind the configuration. No problem, pretty easy to do. We will copy and paste my handy dandy code from another project. Bam, look at that. Look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty cool stuff right there. So basically, what I've done is you'll notice I bring in the Azure Key Vault from app settings with all the dynamic stuff that it's got. Then I have a class that I'm actually binding the app settings to make it easier to reference in my C# code, which is nice. And then you bind the configuration from iConfiguration to your class using builder.services.configure, and bam, you've got a nice injectable, dependency injection friendly iOptions configuration magic, and it's great and it works and it's just awesome. So yeah, good stuff. It's good stuff. So we have app settings in here now. We've got it in program.cs. And we've got that binded to the iConfiguration object. So let's just commit that to Git, add app settings.cs, and bind it to iConfiguration and program.cs. And we'll do that for both of them, I think. Yep, so all we did was just added that. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. I love it, ladies and gentlemen. It's great. I just love it when things just work, when they just work. It feels so good. All right. Fantastic. So what's next? So now what we need to do is we need to add sections for Microsoft Entra External ID in app settings.json. And of course, the Microsoft documentation is not great about this. That's just one thing. Can the teams at Azure please make more up-to-date documentation, please, on Azure AD B2C or like interest stuff? Like, oh my gosh, if I had time and I wanted to be like a full-time C# influencer, probably one of the first things I would do is demystify half the stuff in Azure, because there's so many solopreneurs that could use it, that would benefit from it, but like it's just so confusing to so many people because of missing documentation and stuff like that. It's really frustrating some days. So I believe we just need to add Entra External ID to our program.cs and register it, which may require some NuGet packages and probably a couple builder.service calls. So what's the word I'm looking for here? Entra External ID, add to ASP.NET Core Web API. And I had this earlier on my laptop, but I just want to open it back up on here so we can see what it looks like while I'm sharing my screen. I think this is the guide we want. Build and secure an ASP.NET Core Web API with a Microsoft Identity Platform. I believe this is the right page. And they do have, okay, that's just any framework stuff. I'm not worried about that. They do have a .NET add package, Microsoft.identity.web. Well, what NuGet packages do I have in here? I'm trying to remember. I've got Azure.identity. So they're saying that I need Microsoft.identity. Okay, but hold on now. Is this Azure Active Directory /Entra? Because I don't want Entra. I want Entra External ID, not Entra. Well, no. Okay. Yeah, I think we're right. External ID and external tenants. Microsoft Entra External ID. Yep, tutorials. Okay. So no, this is correct then, right? Entra External ID docs, Entra ID and external tenants, Web API, build a protected web. Okay, really? This is it? Okay. All right, fine. I guess this is it. Yeah. So yeah, Microsoft.identity.web. Let's add that as a NuGet package. Microsoft.identity.web. Looks like that's what we need. Okay. Yep. Looks good. All right, good deal. So we have a new NuGet package we've added. We'll probably commit that to Git in just a second. Let's go back to the documentation page. Okay, interesting. So they actually do want an Azure AD. So even though this is intra-external ID, it's not even called Azure AD anymore. It's literally not even called that anymore. But of course, that's still what the app settings thought. Yo, I'm just gonna stop talking. I get so irritated at the authentication practices at Azure. It's not even funny how mad I get at Azure's auth teams. There's just some days. Anyway, it's okay. Like, at least rename it to intra-external ID or something, but whatever. Okay, so it looks like they want us to add the instance tenant ID and client ID. Okay. This will not be a workforce tenant. This will be a external tenant. Is the authority URL one of these? Or no? Instance. Enter the tenant subdomain here, .cim login. Right, because workforce tenant, so when they say workforce tenant, what they're essentially referring to is Azure Active Directory, like the normal Azure Active Directory you get when you sign up for an Azure tenant. External tenant is the external like ID tenant for like customers when you're building like a C# app. So this is what I want specifically for my application. So essentially, I've got to put this subdomain. And the thing is, I have a dev and a staging and a prod tenant, right? Like I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to have 3 different instance strings because I've got 3 different tenants for 3 different environments. By the way, I meant to drop that video earlier that I was talking about. Solopreneur dev. If you want to see a fun little YouTube video that I made earlier about this, y'all may appreciate this. Solo. It's here somewhere. Bingo. There we go. Yeah, cool. If you guys want to watch any videos from my personal channel, that YouTube link I just shared in the chat is a YouTube link to my personal YouTube channel where I'm gonna like post the ups and downs of the journey, talk about .NET tips and stuff like that. I think it'd be kind of fun. If you want to check that out, check out the link I just shared. All right, so looks like we have 2 options. We can do the authority. Oh no, okay, you can do a custom URL. Okay. Right, and then we've got permissions, app permissions, and scopes. So app permissions are basically delegated. No, I'm sorry. Application permissions are application permissions. Delegated permissions are for users, right? I think that's kind of the idea. So we need scopes and we need app permissions added. And then what we've got to do is add some builder.services statements and program.cs. And then it looks like you pass the entire iConfiguration object in to the .add Microsoft Identity Web API statement. So that seems a little inefficient to me, but okay. I guess you you pass in the entire iConfiguration object. And because this is basically like a top level node in the JSON, I guess they must have like some internal logic that looks for a node called Azure AD, and then it parses like all of the settings after that. So, okay. That's probably just some internal stuff that they wired up. Okay. Well, that's, yeah, and they're just talking about adding authorized attribute to a controller. That's, yeah, I already know how to do all that. Okay, then they're talking about adding like scopes and permissions to endpoints, essentially. Not really worried about that right now. Okay. Yeah, and then probably part 2, which is calling it, it's probably just meaning you add the bearer token to whatever request that you're making. Yeah, literally right here. This is probably, is this in C#? Looks like they're doing a client in C#. Yeah. Authentication header value, yeah, bearer, and then you add the token. Yeah, okay, duh. That's just very basic stuff here. All right. So let's commit our first change to Git. We added a NuGet package for this, so added Microsoft.identity.web NuGet package for external ID. And then app settings.json. Right, that's when okay, yeah, we're good. We'll deal with that in just a second. Okay, so we're going to leave these as empty strings so that we know they're in the app settings.json file. But what we have to do is, since I'm referencing a key vault URL here on line 41 in program.cs, essentially what I have to do is add the GUIDs for these Azure AD app settings values. Essentially what I do is I'm going to grab those out of Azure, and then since there's a dev, a staging, and a production intra external ID tenant and key vault URL, I will basically grab each of the 3 sets of like GUIDs and secret values and stuff, and I'll put each one in each respective key vault, and then all of that gets wired up dynamically in here, which is fantastic. And I don't have to commit any like connection strings or API keys or any of that junk to Git, which is great because that would be a security vulnerability. We don't want to do that. We do not want to do that. So let's go ahead and add a few lines of code to program.cs. Even though I haven't gotten those GUIDs yet, let's go back to the documentation page here. So I'm going to drop this in the chat just in case anybody in here is a C# developer and you want to know how to do intra-external ID. Doc page for wiring up Microsoft intra-external ID in a .NET Web API. Am I allowed to send a link in my own chat? What in the world? Oh, what in the world? Maybe it's because of all the extra URL params. Oh, okay, that's weird. Sorry. YouTube is not like letting me add a link in my own chat. Just a bad URL, sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, if anybody's in the chat and you're wanting to know how to wire up intra-external ID, I think the doc page you're looking at on my screen is probably the best thing you can find right now. Okay, let's go into program.cs and add this. So we'll do this, let's do this below the key vault URL. And I probably need a using statement. Perfect. What was that? Using Microsoft.identity.web. Okay, so you need that statement for adding the OIDVC external ID stuff from Intra. Cool. So this is just straight from the documentation page. Add authentication, JWT bearer defaults, and then, like I said, I guess they're wanting the entire I configuration added in, aren't they? Yeah, they are. Well, and you can target a specific section, it looks like, but yeah, okay. I mean, these are all optional parameters, so I guess, yeah, we just pass the entire I configuration object in, and that'll be fine. So let's go ahead and commit that. Added JWT service registration in program.cs for intra external ID. Now, before I commit that, was there anything else I needed to do in program.cs, or does it all get wired up pretty easily? You add the NuGet package, you add a section to your app settings.json file. They mentioned something about authority. And you've got your scopes and your app permissions. You add this one-liner to program.cs. Okay, apparently it's just a one-liner. Okay, that's pretty easy. Famous last words, man, with authentication. Famous last words. Okay, well, let's push that up. Okay, good deal. All right, so we've made some good progress so far. These are arrays. I'm going to go ahead and add these into app settings so I can have them referenced, and I'll just do empty JSON arrays for those two. But it would be good to go ahead and have them added in so I can remember what the structure looks like on these ridiculous things. Scopes and app permissions, and that's under client ID, under the Azure AD key. Yep. Okay. And then these are just comma separated lists. So that'll be an empty array. We'll get rid of that. That'll be an empty array. That'll be an empty array, and that will be an empty array. Okay. So we've got, a basic structure of what the Azure AD, layout looks like in each of these. And I'm not going to worry about putting these in the production, staging, and development files. All three need this value, and the values are not going to change from one app settings file to another because these are all sensitive credentials, so they're going to be stored in the key vault automatically anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. Cool note for you guys, by the way, for anybody that wants to know a little bit more about how key vaults work. So if you have a string key, the way that I've got it set up here in Azure, in app settings.json, if you want to add corresponding values in your Azure Key Vault to the way it's wired up in app settings.json, here's how you do it. This is a really nice trick that I learned. It's not a trick, but it was so hard to find that it feels like they wanted it to be a trick. It's too complicated, man. We do too much complicated stuff in software engineering. So if you want to add a corresponding secret value, let's say in your Azure Key Vault, like let's say, notice that I've got Azure AD and app settings and then I've got instance in my key vault, what I would do is I would make a key called Azure AD dash dash, and then I would do instance. And if I make a corresponding secret value in my key vault where it's like the name of the JSON key and then dash dash and then the name of the next node, basically, this is like a shortcut or like a hint, if you will, inside of the NuGet packages that you have to use to like wire all this stuff up, where like Microsoft will know how to wire everything up dynamically, which is super nice. So basically, in the dev, staging, and prod key vaults, I will add a corresponding node for each of these into each key vault with the instance, tenant, and client ID, and then the scopes for everything. And the stinky part is that's not really something I can show on screen because those are all like sensitive security credentials and so on and so forth. So that's stuff I've got to do off screen or like onto the side of the screen here. And honestly, I'm kind of wide awake. I could keep going for a little while. I may or may not cut the stream off now. Let me just check something real quick, everybody. Yeah, alright, sorry about that. I know I got quiet there for a minute, just messaging my friends. Yeah, we're kind of at a point, though, where I think, you know, it may make sense to do the rest of this off screen and then just pick this up tomorrow. We've made really good progress, though. We've done really, really good. Essentially, we've got... oh, Halo's loaded up. My friend Jeffrey said, all right, I'm coming, Jeffrey. I'm coming. I'm going to join y'all in just a minute. So we made some good progress tonight. We've formed our app settings.json files more to what we need. We have an app settings class where we bind the iConfiguration together. We've got references to all of our key vault environment URLs, which is great. We've modified launch settings.json in the properties folder. Now we've got nice environment dropdowns for each environment, which is fantastic. We added some NuGet packages that we needed. Now we can bind those key vault secrets to the class that we made in program.cs on line 53. And we added a NuGet package for intra external ID. Apparently it's just a one-liner. I'm just checking the documentation one more time. Yeah, I mean, you essentially just set up values in your app settings.json file, and you basically do a one-liner or a two-liner in your program.cs, and everything just kind of wires itself up the way that you need. Yeah, and you're good to go. So the only thing I need to read a little bit more on is the custom URL right here for the external tenants and the authority URL. I just need to read up on that just like for another minute, but that'll be, you know, that's going to be fine. It'll be quite okay. Yeah, I think we've made good progress though. I'll get the rest of the stuff knocked out off screen. We can get back to the good stuff tomorrow and make some serious progress on some of this. So yeah, I think this will be it for the moment. Let me just commit this last empty set of app settings stuff. Set up Azure AD app settings JSON structure for intra external ID secrets mapping. Okay, and we'll commit that. So we're doing good. We're doing good, everybody. The authentication is a huge pain in the butt, and you know, once we get that wired up and fixed up and stuff, that's going to be a huge win for Didact console because once the authentication system's working as intended, then I can really just work on finishing up the rest of the back end. So we have some database tables to add with Entity Framework Core. We'll make some migrations for those SQL tables. And then I'll have a couple service classes that I'll make, or maybe some workflow classes. I'll have a few controllers, a couple utility services I'll probably make to use for like dependency injection, that kind of thing. And we'll wire all that stuff up. We'll make our SQL migrations. And then the licensing server. We need like an initial version for the licensing server. And, we'll probably have to come back to this web API many times over the next couple years, probably, to add caching and all sorts of interesting services. But, for this first version, we'll have it in a good enough shape where it'll be able to handle all the Didact customers, which is fantastic. So sorry, you're not seeing the exact direct Didact applications we're working on just yet. Like I said, this is something for customers that I've got to knock out first. But I feel like it's still fun and still good to show this just to see how I wire up C# stuff, because this is really interesting stuff. Really enjoyable to watch. So please do make sure to tune in probably tomorrow for my next stream. I'm going to do, I think, another stream tomorrow. And honestly, I'm probably going to try and do like one stream a day here for a little while. I may even do 2 streams a day. We'll just kind of see what happens. But it's been good. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your time. And I will hopefully see you all tomorrow, my friends. Thanks for watching. V1 is just around the corner, and I cannot wait. See you soon. Thanks.